All right, so this was like one of the first tweets to come out from Frege saying, Eichel admits he's upset about the way things have been handled since his injury, says there's been a bit of a disconnect between him and the Sabres. And then basically, I mean, it's kind of been speculated around, right? Eichel would not discuss if he's asked for a trade, except that he didn't play as well as he wanted to and added he has a lot of thinking to do. And then I'll pull this up. Ristolainen says he told Sabres GM Kevin Adams he's open to all scenarios. He's fine with getting traded and fine with staying. Just another player adding to the fact that, like, you're talking about Ristolainen could get moved. You're talking about Eichel could get moved. And then adding to that, Reinhart also kind of talked about him potentially wanting to figure out his situation, seeing if he wants to be moved or evaluate his future, right? So there was that as well. And then just to pull up, so this was his press conference. You guys can go check it out on YouTube. The links are also on Twitter. But just basically most of what came out of it. So big shout out to Charging Buffalo. Jack says the injury situation has been tough and interesting. Not playing has been the toughest part about it. Requires surgery potentially. And then just quotes here. It's definitely a different experience where you're just watching the game from afar, how things were different, and how things ran under Donnie. It seems like things are positive. Guys are excelling and starting to play better. There's definitely a positive to that. He talks well about Ralph, the Michael Hauser story. For sure, I'd say I've been a little bit upset with the way things have been handled since I've been hurt. I'd be lying if I said things have moved smoothly since I've been injured. I'd say there's been So the disconnect word has been the huge thing from today's story. And then he said the disconnect between the organization and myself at times. And then just says, we'll have to see what happens. Guys, when has it been positive when a player says, we'll see what happens, or I'll evaluate my situation, or I want to play with this team, but we'll see what happens in the future? Like, those lines, while it's not saying I want to get traded or I'm going to move on, they don't really sit well. And then obviously he's taking accountability. But yeah, he's saying, like, I'm going to continue to do that as long as I'm here. Like, not saying I'm going to do whatever I can for this team to get us back into the cup conversation or get us back into the playoffs or whatever, right? He says, I'm going to continue to do that as long as I'm here. And then Eichel and Adams, we've had a few conversations. It's been tough. I think with my injury, there's been a little bit of a disconnect. But yeah, there's been a little bit of communication. And then there's been some tough conversations, but I've got to do what's best for me. I'm only going to play hockey for so long. I'm 24 years old and only have so many years playing this amazing game. You have to protect your own interest in what's best for you. So this is where, like, this part of the interview, like the press conference, got super, like, interesting because I'll even play the clip here. I think you should be able to hear this. Give me a sec. But yeah, he hints that the contract is what keeping him from getting surgery at this moment. I'm under contract with this team, and they hold a lot of the cards on what I can do and can't do. So this is the clip, which is like crazy to me. When do we hear players saying stuff like this? I hope this plays.
It is, if you want surgery or if you don't want surgery, whatever your thought is on that, why don't you just do what you would like to do? It's your body. It's your decision with a doctor.
Doesn't work like that, Paul.
Is it because of a contract?
Yeah, it doesn't work like that. I wish. I mean, yeah, you can't. I guess that's you hit the nail on the head there. You know what I mean? Yeah, that's it. I mean, yeah. I mean, obviously, I'm under contract with this team, and they definitely hold a lot of cards on what I can and can't do.
It is, if you want surgery or if you don't want surgery.
To me, that's crazy. I don't know about you guys. To me, that's like really crazy. Like, we're talking about like a player openly like putting it out there that the team is like controlling like a surgery he wants to like. And I do see like obviously the side of the Sabres. Like, apparently the surgery that he actually wants to do would keep him out for even past the start of next year. So like he wouldn't be available for the start of next season in October, right? Just wow. I mean, for me, like, as I said, I think we don't really see athletes like too much, like, especially for a guy like Jack Eichel, when we could argue he's a top 5, top 10 player in this league, right? When he's healthy, we don't really see these players, like, especially when they're long-term, like, committed, talking about this kind of stuff and like being so just not okay with his situation, kind of. So to me, that's crazy. I'd love to hear what you guys think in the comments. So I was recording this on stream, so a lot of people that were in the live stream have already watched this. But this is my potential destinations updated for May 2021 going forward into the offseason. There's a lot of hot takes in here. I threw in extra teams just to have a bigger conversation. These are a lot of teams that I think will be in conversations if Jack Eichel does end up in trade talks and potentially gets moved this offseason. Yeah, so they cheap out on goaltending, don't pay for a goaltender. If they go to, like, with their defenseman they got, they don't really make improvements. Maybe they re-sign Mike Riley. And then forward group, they just re-sign Taylor Hall to $4 or $5 million. Trade DeBrusk, maybe trade Kasha, re-sign Krejci super cheap. They could make a move. They could make a move where they send as much cap as they can towards Buffalo, get prospects and picks, and Jack Eichel goes to what we would call his hometown, right? Do I think it's realistic cap-wise? No. But there is a scenario where Boston could make it work. And as I said, it would probably be 2 first-round picks. It would be probably one of their better prospects. And it would probably be like 1 or 2 roster players. So as I said, DeBrusk is probably in there and someone else. Do I think it's realistic? No. But I think it's in the realm of possibility. The Calgary Flames. I think this is super realistic for a few reasons. One, because I'm looking at Sean Monahan. I'm looking at Johnny Gaudreau. One of those guys would most likely be part of this trade. They have the prospects to get it done. They have a younger defenseman that Buffalo would look at and definitely be intrigued by. So I think Calgary could definitely be one of the teams here. I think Johnny Hockey is going to end up testing free agency eventually. So one of 2 things will happen. If he's part of this trade, Buffalo ends up flipping him after a year to get a bunch of prospects or something. Or 2, you just get Monahan and you hopefully get a high, like top 3 draft pick, and you either draft Owen Power or you draft Matthew Beniers and you go a 1-2 punch with Beniers and Monahan going forward. It's possible. But I do think one of Gaudreau and Monahan would be part of this. I think one of the younger defensemen could be part of this. Maybe Buffalo wants Valimaki. And as I said, at least a first, like 2 firsts potentially. Like it's a big package, right? But Calgary is definitely a realistic target for Eichel. Chicago. I think this is realistic. Imagine Eichel and Patty Kane on a top line. Man, both guys, you're not getting too much defense there, but the American duo, man. Imagine like a top line of like DeBrincat, Eichel, and Kane. And you know what? This is realistic because Chicago's got so many more younger players now. And when I think of guys that could go back the other way, I could see a couple firsts going to Buffalo. I could see Dylan Strome in this. I could see one of the younger defensemen. Chicago has like 2 or 3 young defensemen that would definitely intrigue Buffalo here. So I could see a scenario where the Buffalo Sabres look to the Chicago Blackhawks and go, okay, hand us a couple firsts here. Dylan Strome, young defenseman, prospect or 2. I think Eichel could go to Chicago. I think it's possible. If I'm going maybe top 7 teams, Chicago's in there. Yes, and Eichel, we understand, $10 million contract. I mean, it's a lot, man. AAV, it's a lot. But you send contracts the other way. I mean, if I'm just throwing out 2 contracts already, like if Dylan Strome and Connor Murphy are part of this, for example, that's already combined about $8 million, right? Columbus Blue Jackets, Torts out of this situation. Bring another star to Columbus. They have the younger players to get it done. They have the younger prospects to get it done. And hey, this is a super big hot take. Super big hot take. What if the Columbus Blue Jackets are not able to extend Seth Jones? Okay, this is hot take hockey. It's hot take hockey. Take it with a little bit of grain of salt. But, what if Seth Jones doesn't want to sign an extension and they go, hey, we only have 1 trade for you. You go back in this trade and we get Jack Eichel. I'm not saying that happens. Maybe just scratch that. In general, they could send roster pieces like Max Domi, maybe, I don't know, one of the other forwards like Cam Atkinson, whoever. Go down the list and then include younger guys like you go Liam Foudy, young defenseman, one of the goalies, first round picks, right? Like some kind of package around that. I don't know if Columbus is the most realistic. Yeah, Chinnikov could be there. Columbus has the younger pieces. They have the prospects that they could get this done. And they have contracts that are not horrible for Buffalo that they would match, right? Line A and Eichel would be pretty disgusting on a power play. It would be a pretty good duo. You get like a defensive responsible forward on the other wing with those two guys. It'd be gross. The Detroit Red Wings. Stevie Y is known to pull a little magic. I think Stevie Y will definitely keep his tabs open, keep his phone on, see if Detroit can make something happen here. I'm not saying they're the most realistic, and they definitely don't want to give up a lot of prospects, but they're getting a lot more prospects. And I think Stevie Y is a really smart guy. I think he'll see how an Eichel negotiations or how Eichel trade talks would go in the offseason. I think Detroit's possible because they'll have so much cap space. And if Stevie Y wants a quick little turnaround with their team, I think Eichel could be a possibility. I mean, imagine like Eichel with like Raymond and Zadina, or like, man, there's so many possibilities going forward. And then you have Larkin. Imagine a 1-2 punch of Eichel Larkin, because I'm telling you right now, as much as like Buffalo will want Larkin, I think if this trade was to happen, they would try to figure something out where they can keep a 1-2 punch of Eichel Larkin and then send a bunch of prospects. So obviously, one of maybe like Zadina, Veleno, or like one of those guys would have to go back the other way. One of the younger defensemen would have to go back the other way. Maybe Hronek, or man, maybe they ask for Sider. I don't know. But probably they want a couple first-round picks, potentially for high picks. I mean, this could end up being like a Phil Kessel-esque trade. I don't know. Stevie Y would be smart here. I don't think it's the most realistic, but I think Detroit's a possibility. It'd be funny, but man, Eichel Larkin 1-2 punch would be sick. All right. One of the obvious ones, right? One of the obvious ones. So I think for the New York Rangers, here's the thing, right? Who's part of it? It's so easy to go Eichel to the Rangers, Eichel to the Rangers, Eichel to the Rangers. Well, let's be real here. They're going to want one of, you take your pick. It's going to be one of Kakko, Lafreniere, or like a combo of like Kravtsov, one of those younger defensemen. I would imagine Georgiev's part of it. Couple first-round picks. Maybe Zach Jones is in there. Lindquist. Like, there's going to be a bunch of them that are in these talks. A bunch of them. Right? And the Rangers have a bunch of prospects. They're going to ask for Kakko or Lafreniere. The Rangers say no, most likely. But I wonder if it comes down to it. Like, say it was like, okay, Rangers. Like, Drury. It's this or nothing. And Kakko's a part of it. It depends how big the package was. Like, Rangers fans, would you accept... I'll just throw a hypothetical out here. Would you accept Kakko, Braden Schneider, a first Georgiev, and like a conditional pick? Would you accept something like that for Jack Eichel? Obviously, a contract would have to go the other way. So maybe the Sabres go, hey, we'll take the Trouba contract if you give us Capo Kakko. How about, I mean, hey, if you take the Trouba contract, maybe Capo Kakko, maybe. I don't know. Obviously a hot take, but I do think that if you're just losing Kakko and you're getting Jack frickin' Eichel, I think you consider it, especially if they're taking the Trouba contract. That's a big one for me, especially if you're taking the Trouba contract. But yeah, they're going to want a lot, right? They're going to, as the rumors have kind of floated out, they're going to want the equivalent of like 4 first-round picks. So if it's from the Rangers, as I kind of just threw out. So maybe the Sabres take Trouba, for example, right? Kakko, Zach Jones, Braden Schneider, I don't know, another young forward, and like 2 first-round picks. Something like that. For me, that's the equivalent of like 5 first-round picks, but you're also taking the Trouba contract back. Is it realistic? Maybe not. But this is Jack Eichel, guys. Like, if you're saying no to Kakko, no to Kravtsov, no to Laff, no to Mika, no to all these guys, the trade's not going to happen. This is Jack Eichel, top 10 player easily in the National Hockey League when he's healthy. You have to give to get. You have to give a lot of quality to get a top 10 player in the National Hockey League. If you want a Jack Eichel, Mika Zibanejad 1-2 punch, you have to give up either Kakko or Kravtsov with a couple high-end D prospects, a couple first-round picks. It's just a reality. LA Kings. This is a team. Woo! This is a team that has so many prospects. Take your pick on who could be part of this trade. Velarde, Byfield. Like, go down the list. The LA Kings could put a huge package together. Huge. So, I think the LA Kings are probably the top 3 or top 4 most realistic. Turcotte, Kaliev in there as well. You can go a couple defensive prospects, but they are trying to obviously build up the defense, so they don't really want to give from there too much, right? And then you look at the forwards, like, they have the contracts they can send back. They're also going to get a lot of salary cap here. So the Kings are very likely to be right in those conversations. And, man, I think if there's my favorites right now, the Kings and Rangers are in the top 4 for me. All right, Habs fans. All right, relax. You have to give to get, right? That's the main conversation out of this. You have to give to get. So, as I've said in the past, if you're not giving up Suzuki, which I would probably say not to, you're giving up at the very least, 2 of Romanov, Kotkaniemi, and I mean, I would say you're giving up those 2 guys. I was gonna say, like, you either have to give up, like, just Caulfield or, like, Kotkaniemi and then a bigger package. Like, this is Jack Eichel. Even at Caulfield's best, he's not gonna be touching Jack Eichel, right? So you have to think about that in that perspective. Do you want to give up Caulfield, or do you want to give up Kotkaniemi? Like, yeah, maybe Misak, Romanov, and, like, 2 firsts. That might seem like a lot, but I have to remind people. Hey, guys, say it with me. This is Jack Eichel. When he's healthy, he's a top 10 player. Kotkaniemi, Romanov, 2 firsts, roster player, boom. Buffalo listens. I don't even know if they accept that. They listen. And, yeah, Brandon, I agree with you. I think Buffalo is probably hanging up for a while if Caulfield or Suzuki are not part of it. That's the reality, right? They might come back to Montreal and go, okay, if you put KK, Romanov, a couple firsts, a couple roster players, maybe another younger, like, this all comes down to also, and people have to keep this in mind, there's going to be some people that are going to be underselling Eichel, which just, to me at this point, is just disrespectful. There's also going to be other people on a different side that go, this is a top 5 player, top 10 player, as I've said, right? This guy deserves 3 first-round picks, 2 high-end prospects, great roster player. But what do the Buffalo Sabres do if Eichel goes, this is this, I'm not playing for this team again. He publicly goes out and goes, I'm done. I'm not stepping onto the ice again in a Buffalo Sabres jersey. I mean, frig. Kevin Adams got run all over by Taylor Hall by him just saying, hey, at this point, I'm just going to Boston. How about having some kahunas and telling the guy, screw off? No, we're in the position right here. We just won't trade you, man. I mean, I've listened to a bunch of podcasts, watched a bunch of videos, read articles. Everyone behind the scenes, executives, former players, you do not let a player control a situation like that. It sends that 2nd round pick that the Buffalo Sabres got for Taylor Hall. Yeah, Bjork's played well, but it becomes so much more costly that you got that 2nd round pick because you proved to the rest of the National Hockey League that you can get ran over, you can get taken advantage of because you let players control the situation. But again, I definitely side with Eichel, the whole situation, and like surgery, doing what's best for him, but also I see that they've put themselves in such a shit situation that Eichel has no choice, right? But as I said, you have to give to get. I mean, Buffalo asks for Caulfield or Suzuki, and they probably don't talk to Montreal much past that if they're not including one of those guys. But, man, if they can somehow put a package, as I said, KK, Romanov, couple firsts, roster player, maybe they get somewhere. Okay, hello. Minnesota Wild. Man, not many people are talking about the Minnesota Wild when it comes to Jack Eichel. Imagine Jack Eichel with Kirill Kaprizov. Woo! Fiala, Eichel, Kaprizov. Give me that. I'll say this. Minnesota's got a lot of young guys, right? But they also have a situation where if this trade was to happen before the Seattle expansion draft, they have one of their great defensemen they could give. Buffalo could be like, hey, give us Dumba maybe, give us Brodin, give us someone. I would imagine Buffalo asks for Marco Rossi, 100%, right? They're probably asking for Rossi. They're probably saying, hey, maybe Fiala. They're probably asking for, as I said, one of the bigger defensemen. So, I don't know. Dumba, couple firsts, one of the younger guys, right? That's probably what Minnesota tries to compile together here. But I could see a scenario where Buffalo and Minnesota talk. And it would be obviously different conferences too when things are normal. So I think that makes it easier when you talk about divisions, conferences, stuff like that, right? I think it would be tougher for Buffalo to trade Jack Eichel to the Montreal Canadiens and play Jack Eichel a bunch of times on a year, right? All right. New Jersey Devils. So it's another team where they're just going to have a lot of space. They're going to have the opportunity. And NHL Network, I know they kind of threw it out there. Could maybe one of Jack Hughes or Nico Hischier be part of the trade back to Buffalo? It's an interesting thought. I think New Jersey could definitely put a package together when we talk about first-round picks, when we talk about prospects, when we talk about one of Hischier or Hughes, or maybe both. I mean, that's a huge hot take, but I think New Jersey could. I'm going to keep this one short because I think one of Hischier or Hughes, or maybe both, as I said, would be involved here, but definitely one of them. And I think New Jersey would have the package to bring it. Ottawa Senators. Woo! Another one where they could, I mean, one of Shane Pinto or Josh Norris are part of this. One of your younger wingers are probably part of this. And they're asking for Stützle, but Ottawa's laughing in their face. And then you probably look at one of the younger defensemen. I would imagine it's very likely one of Sanderson and Brandstrom are part of this as well. One of them. And I would imagine, as I said, a first or a couple of firsts. Thank you, Bruce, for the 5. 3-3 Oilers Habs. I appreciate it. Let's get some Bruce hype in the chat. I think Ottawa's a very realistic possibility here. And I would put them probably in my top 7. All right. Philadelphia Flyers. Okay, this is why I think it could work. There's a culmination of why I think this could be a possibility. I think this is probably a little bit more far-fetched, a little bit more of a hot take, but they have contracts or a contract they could send back to Buffalo. I'm looking more at JVR or Voracek, and they have so many younger players. They have defensive prospects. They have forward prospects. Man, I mean, if you're talking about even just one of the younger guys like Farabee or Frost being in here, you're talking about maybe Nolan Patrick getting a fresh start. One of the defensemen they have. And then a couple of first-round picks at least. I think it's a hot take for sure. It definitely is a hot take, but I think it's possible. It's one of those teams that, as I've said, they've been looking for that like star that's coming after Giroux up front, right? And Couturier is amazing. I love Couturier, but he's not the high-end offensive over a point per game guy for the most part, right? I think a 1-2 punch of Eichel and Couturier would be stupid scary. So it's a hot take, but I think it's possible. All right, San Jose Sharks. It's interesting. I think, again, it's back to the thing of like contracts going the other way. I mean, who knows? Maybe Buffalo goes, give us Hertl. Give us Ryan Merkley. Give us something that gets us excited here, right? Hertl's had a great year. So this is a huge hot take again, but I wanted to include a few hot takes just going, San Jose wants to turn it around. They have Erik Karlsson at that contract. They want to make something happen, right? And it would be hard to really rebuild. And I think if they could make an Eichel trade happen where they maybe package Hertl, Merkley, and maybe first, who knows? I mean, it's a huge hot take, but if they could convince Buffalo to take back one of their bad contracts, maybe they could put in such a good package together that they would convince Buffalo to take like Vlasic, for example. But Vlasic has no movement clause. Like, it's just so tough, right? If they can do something, they'll try, right? They've made a trade with the Sabres before. All right, so that's kind of my last one. I mean, I'll just say this, and I've kind of seen people put comments in the chat and people talk about it. Jack Eichel to Seattle. I mean, definitely far-fetched. Could I see it happening? In the realm of possibility, sure. I mean, anything can happen, right? We've been surprised by things happening in the NHL before, especially recently. So I do think Seattle could be a team that's really sneaky. We'll see what happens with their roster. Maybe they make trades after. But it's possible. It definitely is possible. And as I've said it, even if I didn't mention a team here, anything can really happen. I just see these more as a possibility than frankly, the rest of the NHL. So we don't have so much information on Jack Eichel and a potential trade right now. We know probably like 3, 4, 5 teams that would be great fits, and then other teams that could be kind of wild cards. But I do believe Jack Eichel right now, I would throw like a 60-70% chance of him being traded this offseason. And honestly, it's just going to get more and more as we get closer to the draft and expansion draft and free agency and all of that, right? So thank you so much. And will Jack Eichel be traded is the huge question.